Evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, my brother.
Great. Now, from the workers' point of view, what are the specific concerns about this particular position that we understand government has taken not to renew this engagement, and then also possible nationalization of our resources?
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity. I think first and foremost, what we need to underscore is the fact that mining is big business. It's not child's play. And for that matter, for you to venture into mining, you require huge, capital to invest. And so every business person who goes into mining obviously goes with a risk. And so the expectation is that there will be some level of certainty, some level of predictability to enable you, invest and be able to make the returns to pay back whatever you would have raised by way of capital. And for that matter, I believe that GoForce came with that agenda. They came with the idea that they're going to invest long term with a view to creating value, not just for the shareholder, but also for our country, Ghana, and also by way of employment, workers get to get some employment from Goldfields. Now, the decision by government to not to extend the mining lease, I'm unable to establish why that will happen. But if the only reason is because the mining lease has come to an end or is expired, and that is the premise on which the mining lease will not be extended, I find that quite problematic. Because when a mining lease expires, it affords the government also an opportunity to enter into some negotiations, because the conditions precedent for the extension of the mining lease can always be negotiated, so that it affords not just the Goldfields in this case the opportunity to get an extension and continue to invest in the Damam mine, but it also affords the government, to take advantage of the window of opportunity and ensure that whatever gains that probably we didn't get in the initial lease agreement, we can always get that renegotiated so that it benefits the country. So as it stands now, as workers, like you rightly indicated, over 1,000 workers, their fate, and for that matter, what the future holds for them, is not one that you can guarantee. But you are asking yourself, what is the alternative to government's decision not to extend the mining lease? Is government throwing all these teeming young men and women onto the streets? What are the alternatives? If you do not have immediate alternatives to mitigate the impact of your decisions, we think that this decision is quite unfair under the circumstances. If there's a broader view about how the mineral resources of this country should be managed, that is entirely a different, subject matter or a conversation altogether. Then in that case, government will have to come up with a more comprehensive view about how the mineral resources of this country will be managed going forward, so that you can communicate more clearly, not just to the outside world by way of the investor community, but also your internal stakeholders by way of the workers who work for these companies. Because today is Goldfields, whose mining lease has run to an end, and government says I'm unable to extend. What happens to all the other mining companies in the industry? And what happens to prospective investors who are contemplating on getting into the mining market? So it raises a whole lot of confusion in the minds of the investor community, in the minds of workers who work in the industry, and for the host communities within which these mining companies operate. So government ought to pause and engage Goldfields. If there is a much bigger agenda about how we nationalize our mines, and that is the broader policy direction for government, even that will require some stakeholder consultations, so that we are all clear in our minds that going forward, this is the way and manner the mining industry of Ghana is going to manage.
I see. And that point that you end is where I'm going to pick it up from. So that, if these media reports were monitoring anything to go by, the option government is looking at is the nationalization of our resources, our mining operations as a country. From where you sit and based on your experience in this area, is it a viable option that government should be looking at?
Well, we have some history behind us. In the 80s, we had what we call the state gold mining corporations. Virtually all the mines that we have today, whether in Takwa, in Bogoso, in Bogoso, in Aboso, or in Obuasi, these were all state-operated mines. And it didn't appear we got the best out of the decision by government to run the mines all by itself. I mean, if you look at what we went through within that period and what we are going through today, I can say without any shred of doubt that we are better off under this current arrangement. And so it depends on what kind of interventions government is putting in place. If you want to nationalize, you just don't nationalize without putting in the right structures in place. At the end of the day, if you are not careful and you go under an agenda of nationalization, you may just have some individuals who will take over these assets and then line up their pockets to the greater disadvantage of all of us. And so it's important that if that is the agenda, what are the systems that government intends to put in place so that at the end of the day, the outcomes of your nationalization agenda benefits the entire nation. If those arrangements are not put in place, I can assure you that a wholesale nationalization agenda will not inure to the benefit of this country.
The underlying consideration in this whole nationalization option from our sources close to this conversation within government is to, as it were, increase local content and then also the local ownership in our extractive industry. Isn't that paramount, one that should be also be looked at in the scheme of things?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that yes, you can pursue an agenda to localize. That is in the right direction. But you must have the right systems in place to ensure that the agenda you are pursuing would be maximized or optimized to the greater benefit of the entire Ghanaian, to the entire country. But if you pursue an agenda of localization where the aggregate effect of that policy position doesn't actually bring out what you anticipate, I think that it would have been a counterproductive, arrangement. And that's why our view as a union is that, look, if you have any broad policy position which is geared towards local participation or greater local participation, and for that matter, there is a gradual shift towards nationalization, then you need to carry everybody along so that we get to that point where we believe that, look, this policy direction is a direction that would bring in maximum returns to the country. And for that matter, every Ghanaian will benefit from the outcomes of the mining that we do in this country. But if you pursue an agenda, in my view, if you look at the way this Abosu Goldfields lease extension, government went about it, clearly it doesn't appear that government really had a clear plan on how to proceed. Because it is as if to suggest that from now on, any mining company whose mining lease comes to an end, it is most likely that we are not going to extend it. So if that is what you are communicating to investors, like I indicated earlier, it sends shivers down their spines and investors begin to contemplate whether or not Ghana is the right place to do business. So you can have an agenda, but that agenda must be situated within a context which would, at the end of the day, bring the returns or bring the outcomes that you are looking for. But you also don't do that at the expense of existing players within the market who would also be alarmed arising out of your decisions or the decisions that you make.
And so what's going to be the next step for you? I mean, the understanding I get is that now there's some sort of an attempt to engage government on it to get some better, further particulars on this position. But what's going to be the next step for you?
Well, as it stands now, like I indicated, over 1,000 workers are likely to lose their jobs because of this sudden decision by government. I don't know whether it was well thought out. But that is likely the situation that we're going to have on our hands, where you have in excess of 1,000 workers, going without jobs. So the question is, what are the alternatives? What is government's own plans about its own decisions? So given the circumstances under which we find ourselves, I'm sure that government may have to put forward some alternative measures or arrangements beyond its decision not to extend. But I indicated earlier that it is important that government continues the consultations with Goldfields so that in between the next round of the extension of the lease, whatever government's intentions are about how we manage the industry going forward must be quite comprehensive and elaborate so that everybody understands that, look, going forward, this is how things are going to be done. So that in terms of the investor, he knows what to do and what not to do and all that. But as it stands now, if government still holds on to its decision not to extend the mining lease, what that means is that we may have to approach government for to ensure that our incomes and our livelihoods continue to come to the workers who may be affected as a result of these decisions. And so, decision to go to the ministry and possibly to the seat of government to let them understand that the decisions that they make have ramifications. And one of the key ramifications here is loss of jobs and, for that matter, loss of incomes and livelihoods. We must drum up this position and get government to do the needful by making sure that our incomes are paid. Whichever way it has to be done, it's entirely their decision because they've taken the decision not to extend the mining lease.
I understand you intend picketing at the Minerals Commission next week, correct?
Yeah, it's an option that is being considered because, like I said, if workers are going to sit home without any way forward on how their incomes are going to be paid and all that, then obviously the powers that be who made the decision not to extend the mining lease for whatever reasons, I think that they may have to answer, or they should have some answers for us. If not, how are we going to go, about our lives without any source of incomes when we had some jobs with Goldfields and many of the contractors that we work for? So yes, it is something that is on the table, which we are likely to consider from next week onwards.
So Abdul-Moomin, thank you for your time, and this is a conversation that is just developing quite fast, and so we'll keep an eye on how things play out. Appreciate you. Thank you. Abdul-Moomin Bana is General Secretary of the Mine Workers Union, joining us with his thoughts on this. And this is one that we're keeping an eye on, see how things play out here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, also on Kesme 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're live on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. There's some news.